She's always ready. You, man.
Good evening. I call the February 7th, 2022 meeting of Pickens County Council to order. I want to thank everyone for being here tonight, and I hope that we can all be respectful as we do the business of the county. I want to take a point of privilege, if you will, and I want to say thank you. I want to recognize Captain Gary Parsons. This will be his last night with us after 37 years of service to the residents of Pickens County. You've always done a great job, and you've been here to bear with us through some painful meetings and some hard times, and I do want to thank you for your dedication and your service. You'll be missed for sure. And if you want to come on back, just let me know. Saying that, at this time I'm going to ask Councilman Whitehurst if he would open us and lead us in the invocation and the pledge.
Y'all please stand. Dear Lord, we give you thanks today for just being able to live in this great county of ours. We thank you for all the many blessings you've given all of us here to be in this country, a free country. We give you thanks for all these people here that have come to participate in government, and just thank you for the freedom to do that. We ask you to watch over all those people that are serving this country and serving this county, either in harm's way overseas or even locally, and just put a hedge of protection around them and their families. We ask tonight, God, for your wisdom and guidance as we do the business of this county, that all we would do would be for your glory. We ask this in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The second item on tonight's agenda is consideration of Resolution 2022-01, congratulating Pickens High School's volleyball team as the winner of the Class 4A Volleyball State Championship. Ask for a motion and a second to consider this resolution.
Motion.
It's my district. Can I
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I was just jumping in. I don't know. I'll second.
Second by Vice Chairman Costner. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you, gentlemen. If I could ask representatives from Pickens High School that's here with us tonight.
Sorry, wrong one.
Step up front.
It's this one.
It's okay. We'll let them do the Daniel one. We have a small token of appreciation that we want to give you tonight. We want to say congratulations. I know it was a lot of hard work and a lot of went into this, and we appreciate you being representatives of Pickens County.
Thank you so much.
Councilman said it's your time to get retaliation if you would like.
It's your time to retaliate.
Consideration of a resolution 2022-02 congratulating D.W. Daniel High School football team as the winners of the 3A South Carolina State Football Championship. I ask for a motion and a second to consider this resolution.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Feimster. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. It's unanimous. Do we have representation from Daniel High School? If you would, please step forward. I'd like to give you a small token of appreciation. Thank you for representing Pickens County proudly and bringing back the state championship. Yes, sir. Thank you. Fourth on tonight's agenda is public forum. We'll hold our public forum. This is a time for the public, an opportunity for the public to bring to us what they can feel is important that they need to share with council. Madam Clerk, if you would, please call the first speaker. I don't believe your mic's hot. Ms. Payne?
Shay Airy.
Yes, if you just go to the podium.
And apologize for Ms. Payne's absence. I'm with the same group, and she heard I was coming, so she probably stayed home. My name is Shay Airy. I'm an attorney in Seneca, South Carolina. I do mostly real estate work, but my parents live here in Pickens County, and I'm one of the members of the group that's redeveloping the old Gap Hill Marina into what is called Sunset Marina now. And after more than 3 years of permitting with the state and the federal government, we're finally to a place where there's going to be a lot of positive changes out there. In the coming year, there should be about 130 new covered docks out there on the lake. There was, as some in the room might know, a lot of sort of refuse over the years out there, and that's being cleaned up and done properly. So it's going to be a lot more environmentally cleanly than it has been for a long time out there. There will eventually be a dry stack storage, a new boat store, and a restaurant up there. And a lot of our friends in Pickens County are always happy to hear that. And after a lot of hard work, we're happy that it's at this phase. The reason that I'm here tonight is as we bring this forward, one of the concerns, of course, of the partners is on the restaurant side, and a lot of the people who have already frequented the store over the years in Pickens County and the unincorporated parts of the county on Sundays, which is one of the biggest days commercially on the lake there, we're not able to sell alcohol on Sundays in Pickens County in the unincorporated areas. In South Carolina, as you all are likely aware, that is something that can be pursued by referendum in particular municipalities and counties. Town of Pickens has done this. Over in Oconee County, it was done in 2014. Clemson has done this. But not just the marina, but a lot of other organizations and businesses in the unincorporated parts of the county are at a competitive disadvantage on Sundays. Doesn't mean people aren't getting their drink somewhere, they're just not getting it at Pickens County businesses. So what we would like to ask Pickens County Council to consider is placing this on a referendum to let the people of Pickens County decide whether it's proper to allow the sale of alcohol on Sundays in the unincorporated parts of the county. So that's our request.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
John Hamilton. Is he coming? No. Okay. Maggie Erickson.
Good evening, Chairman Bowers, Vice Chairman Costner, and council members. I'm here to express my gratitude for the opportunity to speak in a public forum and to update the council on citizen concerns regarding 1781 6 Mile Highway. First, I'll start with the things we can affirm. Number one, Sheriff Clark recently agreed to arrange a meeting with many of the parties responsible for action. We'll update the council on our progress at the next meeting. Two, we affirm the effectiveness of being able to speak in the public forum to elevate legitimate concerns. Three, we thank the county for responding after our public pleas for help. Mr. Roper and Councilman Whitehurst, among others, have been particularly helpful, and we thank you for that. We hear you saying that there are inefficiencies being addressed, and we really appreciate that. But I must, with respect, correct Mr. Roper's assessment from the last council meeting that he believes we are satisfied. We are not. Here's where we're still struggling. Number one, a widow's pet was killed, a person was bitten by an animal accompanying a transient who was staying at that property. High school students have been threatened and had to call 911. Children have had to call 911. Neighbors have had to install fences, security systems, and cameras. All of this 5 years after we began raising concerns privately. How bad does it have to get? Two, we the citizens are paying a steep price for the deeply entrenched silos between agencies and officials. These silos make it especially difficult to collaborate towards solutions. For 5 years, no one was willing to collaborate or look at the problems from a big picture perspective, so the problems have multiplied and have gone unsolved. Three, we are not satisfied because we believe that if we let up from speaking publicly, even for a moment, no more attention will be paid. And personally, I'm angry for the many times that we have been ignored, dismissed, gaslighted when we brought legitimate concerns to those responsible for action for over 5 years. I'm frustrated and disappointed that law-abiding citizens have lost the feeling of peace and safety in their own homes while a chronic, flagrant lawbreaker was allowed to do whatever he wanted, to the detriment of everyone in the community. Now the problem is so large that Pickens County, the Pickens County Sheriff, the Magistrate's Court, the Solicitor's Office, and the Probate Court are all involved. This has an ongoing negative impact on so many people, including neighbors, Daniel High School, and our community at large. This complex problem threatens the peace and safety of our community. Our group is growing and, in fact, includes neighborhood kids tonight whose lives have been negatively impacted, and they're here to hear your response. Our resolve to ensure that the elected and appointed officials are held accountable to do their jobs will not waver. Thank you.
Alan Quinn.
Alan Quinn from Easley. I've been coming to these council meetings for going on 5 years now. This is because I'm very concerned about the lack of opportunities for our young people in Pickens County that have to leave Pickens County to find gainful employment elsewhere. We have many schools surrounding us for them to attend after high school, but no good jobs for them when they graduate. I have come to these meetings regularly for the past few years to bring this before you, but absolutely nothing has been done to help the situation. As I have stated before, I feel the root cause of this problem is the management at Alliance Pickens at the Commerce Park, which has been under the same leadership for the past 20 years. The county built the Commerce Park 20 years ago at his request, and it was supposed to take only 10 years to fill it up with many good paying jobs. Instead, it has taken 20 years, and given the last spot was given to a company that is going to provide jobs, 14 jobs, at $14 an hour. Just down the road, the Bojangles can compete with that. Now, we don't have any room left, and they are probably going to ask you to build another one, which at this point, seeing the track record, would be highly unadvisable. I have requested to be advised of their meetings over the past couple of years, but always have been given a very late notice or no notice, although I used the process you gave me to be able to attend these meetings. They are held quarterly and still Zoom meetings. That means in 4 years term, you will have 16 meetings with little or no results. I feel there should be monthly productive meetings for Pickens Alliance Pickens. Also, professional members should be appointed as members with experience in this line of development. It bothers me that I have been attending almost all committee of the whole meetings and council meetings, and economic development for Pickens County is not even mentioned. It don't even come up. It's going to be too late soon. Pickens County has lost manufacturing jobs, while all 5 surrounding counties have gained many and good jobs. South Carolina is booming, and we are being left behind.
Thank you, Mr. Quinn.
Rick Tate.
Good evening, gentlemen. I'm simply here to say thank you to Henry, Trey, Chris, Roy, Inslee, Alex, and I'm proud to say, well, and Les and Ken, I'm proud to say most of you, if not my friends, we are friendly. And I wanted to thank you. From what I understand, Henry nominated me. I applied, asked to be put on be a trustee on the library board, but you folks picked somebody you thought was more appropriate, and you needed somebody on the Public Service Commission, and you unanimously voted me onto the Public Service Commission. Thank you. I hope to justify your confidence in me and make you glad that you did that. I'm going to meet with Clint Dickey this week and go take the tour and see what the job's all about, and try to serve my community and make you proud of me. Beyond that, I would share this with you. I was just in the past week confirmed as an appointee by the governor to the South Carolina Advisory Commission on Aging, to the at-large seat in the state. So anything that you guys have concerning the aging or anything you think needs to be brought to the state level that I can help with, I'm at your disposal. To anybody here in the room as far as that goes. Having taken care of both my parents in their last months of life, I appreciate what the council is trying to do, and I'll try to do my part to bring some help and some relief to the aging people of our state and make whatever contribution I can. And any input you guys have, I'd appreciate. Anything you think needs to be brought up. Thank you for giving me the chance to speak. Thank you for your service to our community.
Thank you.
Deborah Hudson.
Hello. 3 months ago, I presented each of you with a copy of this book, Sustainable, The War on Free Enterprise, Private Property, and Individuals. I appreciate the feedback that I received from Mr. Saida, and I'm hoping the rest of you took time to read it. Another concerned citizen and I bought and shared these books so that your eyes might be open to see, like mine were, that many agendas being pushed in Pickens in the past and present are not uniquely local ideas. What if elected officials are being guided by people groomed as sustainability planners to make policies that could ultimately undermine our freedom? The famous economist John Locke once wrote, quote, "Life and liberty are secure only so long as the right of property is secure," unquote. That is why your silence on a petition by more than 600 plus taxpayers in Pickens County is a little worrisome. The petition only asks for 3 things. This is the condensed version because of time. 1, include a property owner in discussions if any planning would affect their property rights. 2, compensate the property owner if eminent domain was ever involved. And 3, have permission from the owner before going on their land for any planning purposes. I am wondering which part of the petition this council disagrees with. Thinking back over the 22 years that I've lived in Pickens, this is not the first time that the wishes of the people in Pickens have been ignored. I'm reminded of the closing of the rural elementary schools that took children further from their communities. And what about the pressure that had to be applied so that those who lived along the Doodle Trail would be compensated for their land they were losing as well as their privacy? Many thought the building of several huge high schools all at the same time was not in our best interest. Most recently, 5 of you voted for an unacceptable tax increase on our private property, not to mention the problems with the illegal gas tax that was collected for years with roads in disrepair. The last 2 years have shown how many leaders are eager to overregulate citizens with no regard for their God-given freedoms. Please take a stand to preserve freedom in Pickens County. A critical first step would be to show an interest in respecting and preserving private property rights. Please keep this in mind as you plan for the future. It's disturbing that Pickens paid $90,000 to a company that endorses the very highly debatable global climate emergency worldview. What if the federal government is just using environmental protection and heritage preservation as excuses to grab and regulate land and thus tighten control on the people? Just in case, let's keep decision-making about our beautiful places like scenic Highway 11 local. Is there a way for our community to pull together to meet needs rather than accepting grants that have strings attached from groups like the Appalachian Council of Government? If you read this book and look what is happening in towns all over America, you will understand my concerns. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members of council, this concludes the public forum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Next on our agenda is approval of minutes. I'll ask for a motion approving the minutes for the January 3rd meeting, January 18th special called meeting, January 24th special called meeting, February 1st council priorities and budget work session meeting. Do I have a motion? Motion by Councilman Feimster. Do I have a second? Second by Councilman Seda. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Unanimous. Thank you, gentlemen. Item 6 on tonight's agenda is the administrator's report. Mr. Roper.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the opportunity to update you on a few things going on from the administrative side of county government. First thing is I've started many months now in a row. I'll start with the COVID update, and I won't belabor this because so many of us know what to do. We know our positions. We know how we feel. We know what our family, our doctor, all those things have said. So I don't think it's my role to lecture on that. Only reason I point it out is because during the recent surge of cases, which you can see right here, thankfully that started to fall here in Pickens County, and we're very happy and heartened to see that. The real reason I bring it up to you is because operationally, for a week or so there, we were really struggling. There were two different departments, specifically our registered deeds office and also our vehicle maintenance department, that were down to one employee, the supervisor, at different times. But we're very proud as a staff that we've done what we could throughout this entire pandemic, and we've never closed the operation of county government. So we're very pleased with that, and hopefully we'll see this surge continue to go away. We know what to do, we know the rules of the road, and we're going to continue to make sure, with your guidance, that county government stays open for everyone. Wanted to bring that up to you. The CIP update on our infrastructure and our capital improvement. As you'll see, I bring this to you month to month to show you. It shows up green on my screen, and I apologize about that. You can see it shows up blue on your screen, and you can see as all those things have turned blue. We're about halfway through the budget year. Almost all those items have been ordered. Some have been delivered, some have not been delivered yet because of supply chain issues. But I want you to know that we've done what we could, and we have many of the things on the ground ready. There's a couple that haven't been. One is a sand spreader that our Roads and Bridges Department had in the capital improvement plan for this year. It came in significantly over budget. We're actually looking at the possibility of getting 2 smaller sand spreaders, and we'll bring back a recommendation on that. We're looking operationally at what would work best for us during our ice storms, what can we use best. So that one's a little bit on hold. Other than that, everything seems to be going pretty well. I wanted to let you know that the capital purchases that you all approved in the budget have been ordered almost without exception and are on their way to be delivered to us. Another thing I wanted to talk to you about, and next month I hope to have here our new EMS director, Mr. Dunaway, will be here. He doesn't start until nothing this coming week. But regardless, one of the first things we're tasking him with is a significant amount of uncollected EMS bills from months and years gone by. We believe that there's huge financing pressures on departments like EMS, and some of our bills have gotten older, and we're not having any luck collecting them. The people have moved or something like that's happened. So we know that there is a set-off debt program through the state. One of the first tasks of this new employee is to investigate that, to see if we can bring y'all back some good news about folks that might need to pay that bill that we have lost contact with through the months and the years. I bring it up to you just in case. Pickens County doesn't have a strong record in the past of using the state's set-off debt collection process, so I want us to be able to talk about that, and I wanted to let you know that this is just something we're studying and considering but we'll bring you a more specific proposal in the coming week. Another program that we're starting here on a pilot basis, and this comes about, Captain Parsons was involved in this committee. When Pickens County was chosen throughout the nation as one of the few counties that was able to participate in a suicide prevention for veterans and service members and their families program. During that process, our staff, along with the committee members who participated, along with representatives from the state VA and Upstate Warrior Solutions, were able to come up with gaps in our continuing care of these veterans and their service members and their families. So if there's gaps in those in our care, can we address them? One of the gaps was that if someone was not feeling well, if someone was feeling particularly weak about this, we know that suicide can be a crime of opportunity. I guess crime is the wrong word. It can be an action of opportunity. And so if someone is feeling that way, we want them to have the resource. So this is a voluntary program that we've started. Basically, we receive some Dunlops that people can request if they're not feeling well. They feel like they might need that extra layer of protection. We've got them at 2 fire stations. We've got them at the sheriff's office. We've got them here in our VA office. So it's not something that we're going to track. It's not something that's going to get you on a list. But if someone needs that asset, we've got that asset for them if they're not feeling well, and we can help. We hope that that'll be something that people will use. The only stat that we're going to keep through this program is how many people weigh. We're not going to keep stats from the people that request them. So we just want to let the public know that. I want to let you all know that one gap in our care has been identified, and we're starting a pilot program to try to address it. Folks like Captain Parsons and others, Emergency Services Director Billy Gibson, our collaborations manager Jessica Varney have worked hard, and we're anxious and excited to be able to provide people this option if they ever need it. One more thing before I go, because I want to hurry. I know you have a full agenda, and I've got an exciting announcement that I want Ms. Thompson to be able to make here in just a moment to bring you up to date on her organization. I do want to address Ms. Erickson's comments, and I want to apologize if the word choice that I used was somehow taken as a lack of interest or a feeling on our part of satisfaction or completion. That was not my intent. I think your dissatisfaction with the process, I share it, and I hope that we can continue to make progress. I can tell you as recently as today, the county attorney was in 2 different courts inquiring about the case, and we'll continue along that path because we need to see this through to conclusion. And I just apologize if my words caused you some discomfort during that process, and thank you for bringing that up. With that being said, I want to turn it over, if I could, Mr. Chairman, for just a moment to let Margaret Thompson give you an update on some exciting news from Clemson Paul Partners. She wants me to do it. I can't believe this. I've given Ms. Thompson the opportunity to take a microphone, and she has declined. So I would just say that we're very proud and excited that our partner in this animal welfare offering in the county, someone that has started on her own with just her own hard work, her own commitment to the process, Ms. Margaret Thompson, she's made it the cause of her life now. And she came to the county with a proposal, a very specific proposal. We were able to provide her a facility which she has then raised money. It costs the taxpayers absolutely nothing. And she has outfitted this facility. She's been working as an animal rescue throughout the big gap that we've all been talking about for many years now. In our program and in hers was the need for a veterinarian that would provide service out of that facility. The facility is ready. It's upfitted and ready. And I think, Ms. Thompson, so that I don't get the name wrong, we're here to announce something exciting tonight. And so I'll let you, if you could, do that introduction for us.
I want to introduce everybody to Dr. Kate Whitzel. Dr. Kate is from Kansas. I just know her. Dr. Kate went to Kansas State University. She graduated from Kansas State and attended vet school at Kansas State University. She got a job opportunity with Martin Vet down in Pelzer, and they do farm animals and domestic animals too. So a couple of 3 weeks ago, she posted something on Facebook, and I had gotten to know her because one of these dogs on your shirt, she crawled under an 18-wheeler to get it. It's at my house right now, but it bit her at the same time. So she was, Thank y'all, thank you.
Thank you.
I knew that Ms. Thompson was wanting to talk, I could just tell. But thank you, this is gonna be, our shelter will make great use of this facility. I think this is part of the long-term growth of the partnership, and I just thank Ms. Thompson for this work.
Thank y'all very much.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Roper? Councilman Whitehurst.
Once again, it's 6 Mile. And I see the sheriff's here tonight, so is it possible for y'all to both address? I'd like to hear. I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot, but at least with this situation that has been a very, very long situation, where are y'all in the process of putting some pressure on this residence? I know there's been cases where I understand he's been to the high school with a baseball bat threatening coaches. There's a whole list of stuff that goes on with it, but I don't want to. I want to hear where we are from the administrator and the sheriff on this long-standing issue.
As far as where we're at here, is really what's been going on is we get into the civil side, I guess you'd say. And we hadn't had lately, Greg Dunlop, all the others that we've had. And we thought today was going to be a great day, so it's been on my desk when we were going to go to court. But as it came out today, the court was taken off because we're still, sometimes there's not again or COVID, so today was knocked out of COVID. So that's why I thought today was lead day, and I can't tell you why we just decided what they did today.
Well,
Councilman Whitehurst, I can address what's going on our side. I was on board. I don't think the sheriff was down there this morning. I went down there this morning. There were four of us down there, the director of planning, 2 enforcement officers. And when I got there this morning, the magistrate was in the process of telling us that the case had been continued. We're supposed to pick a jury today. One of the parties, I'm not sure who, has cancer, and that's why it was continued. That's what we were told. And so what they did is they set it for a day certain in March. So today's jury selection was moved to March. So there'll be a jury selection in March, which is when you have that type of situation in the magistrate's court, that's going to happen. The solicitor consented to it, public defenders involved in it, so that happened without anything from the county. I will tell you also, went to the probate court, reviewed the file. The personal representative of that estate, who's the actual person in charge of the house, has been getting violations because she's in charge of the house. That estate is progressing. She is made a filing with the court just recently where she's listing it with a realtor. I've not seen that it's been listed, but she's listing it with a realtor with an affidavit that was filed in the probate court. I also talked to the solicitor's office to find out about continuance. Not had communication with them this morning. And I also spoke with the planning commission that sat down today and spoke with them to find out what we were doing ongoing. And I will tell council that we are spending a full day every week with our officers issuing more tickets and violations. So that's where we are. Everything that the county can do being focused on this as far as our codes and magistrates.
I understand and we seem to be doing really good getting those tickets back up for those violations, but I also understand there's criminal activity going down there in that area, that there's been several 911 calls made for incidences, and I don't know specifics in those incidents, but I'm assuming you're trying to maybe be on top of that particularly strongly.
Everything that calls come in, we've got that with, but I'm not sure lately that it's been what it was several months or years ago. So that's why we're kind of in the
and I understand just your presence helps, you know, and just kind of, you know, because this has been one of these things where these people have suffered for literally 5 years.
A lot of times you don't see us because we always.
Understand.
High school, we're up and down that area, and so we want to be the end of this too.
Thank you. That's all.
Any other questions for Mr. Roper?
Mr. Chairman, I have two issues.
Mr. Sager?
Has the work at Long Shoals Park been completed?
It's not completed. They're actually saved a little money and they're expanding where they're putting the split rail fence as well. So there's more work ongoing there.
Okay.
We're excited about it.
At the last meeting, you mentioned the county population's risen above 130,000, so we have to hire a master in equity to conduct foreclosure auctions.
Yes, sir.
I went back and I researched in December, we had 3 foreclosure auctions in the county. January, there was 3, and there was 4 in February. So I personally think the special referees can handle that. If they were able to do 30 and 40 a month years ago, I think they could do 3 and 4. So I want you to consider 3 options instead of funding that office with $250,000. I think one is, I spoke to Senator Rex Rice. He would be open to talking about local legislation to waive that requirement. The second option would be, Les has mentioned that we could hire that person part-time and save half that money. And then the third option is if we have to hire a full-time master in equity, can you find out if he or she could double as a circuit court judge? Because reading the law, the master in equity is actually part of the circuit court system. They get all the benefits of a circuit court judge, and they actually have to have the requirements of a circuit court judge. So for all intents and purposes, they're probably a circuit court judge with responsibilities for foreclosures, which we have very few of. So if we do have to hire him full-time, he might be useful as a circuit court judge when he's not doing the
Mr. Sada, I
foreclosure.
can tell you on the third question, and I'll say he or she, people could correct me on this all the time, he or she that's appointed to that position, appointed by the governor, they do have some of that authority. You're exactly right. So, for example, in days gone by, when the jail was overpopulated, the old jail, Judge Simmons, the master in equity from Greenville, could come over and hold a court in Pickens County to help clean out the jail. So
Act as a circuit court judge.
yeah, exactly. Act as a circuit court judge. They can also act as a circuit court judge to hear certain motions, certain, I think there's debt issues they can hear. So there are some other things, but we'll certainly
That wouldn't be my
investigate.
first choice, but I said if we're forced to.
We'll
to do
certainly
that.
investigate all 3. Thank you.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Any other questions for Mr. Roper? Thank you, Mr. Roper. We'll move to item number 7 on tonight's agenda. That's the committee reports. The Committee of the Whole met on Tuesday, February 1st in the main conference room of the admin building. Log number 190, fire fee revenue structure. Vice Chairman Roy Costner made a motion to recommend refunding the difference to taxpayers who paid more than $1,800 on their commercial fire fee, and for council to continue discussion on fire fee revenue structure for the next budget year. Motion was seconded by Council Trey Whitehurst and carried unanimously 5-0. No second is required as this comes from a recommendation from the committee. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Chairman.
Vice Chairman Costner.
Mr. Roper, you said you were going to have us the numbers of what that would equate to, the people that it affected and how much money we were talking about?
Yes, Mr. Vice Chairman, thank you. We had the auditor go back with our assessor and research this. The total number of property owners that will be impacted, you'll remember the other night I was giving you the number 69. I think that was the total number of buildings. So it's actually going to be fewer than that. It's going to be 45 property owners that will be impacted. The total cost in order to issue those refunds from the general fund, which is what I understood the motion to be, will be $115,000. And that will mean everybody that has those multiples that was not council's intention will be eligible for refund.
Any other questions, any other discussion on the motion?
So the discussion was to refund it in the current year? Is that what it is? That's the plan. Has anybody asked the treasurer if that's doable? He said? Okay.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. That's unanimous. Thank you, gentlemen. Log number 194, council redistricting. Councilman Alex Sada made a motion to recommend first reading in title only of an ordinance to move forward with option 2 draft map on council redistricting. Motion was seconded by Councilman Whitehurst and carried unanimously 5-0. The second's required as this comes as a recommendation from the committee,
It's also on the
but
log.
we actually have it on the log to discuss tonight as item 13. Item number 8 on tonight's agenda is council correspondence. Non-essential county offices will be closed on Monday, February 21st in observance of President's Day. The committee of the whole meeting will be on Tuesday, February 22nd at 6 in the main conference room of the admin building. The next council meeting will be on Monday, March 7th at 6:30 here in council chambers. Are there any other correspondence that need to be announced? Hearing none. Item number 9 on tonight's agenda is motion period and new business. Is there any motions or new business at this time? Hearing none. Item 10, consideration of a resolution recognizing February 2022 as American Heart Month. I ask for a motion and a second to consider this resolution. Motion. I have a motion by Councilman Feimster. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Vice Chairman. Any discussion?
One of the things that I like about this is that I have a replacement valve in my heart, and it's been doing a great job. 2 years. So
That's awesome.
I'm happy that I'm still alive because of it.
Absolutely. Mr. Administrator, I know with these resolutions, what does the county plan to do to kind of get some teeth to this resolution?
So we were looking just today at a way that we can make our resolutions more public on our website. But in addition to that, like we had last month, we had a scheduled blood donation event. We'll look at programming things throughout February, the perfect month for it to be Heart Health Month, and we'll come back to the report on it.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you, gentlemen. Item number 11 is update on Highway 11 corridor study.
Mr. Chairman, I apologize about the technical problems. I think I have a short in my microphone cord.
I think you do too.
Deal, as I talk. But anyway, I'll tell you, as it comes to this matter, you received a written report that's kind of a midway point from the Appalachian Council of Governments. You'll all recall that we commissioned the Appalachian Council of Governments to do a study, to take in public input, to look at other options for us all, and particularly in light of the fact that you have tonight on your agenda the second reading of a moratorium, we want to continue to show how much you all are looking at this and how seriously you're looking at it. So it's not on tonight's agenda intended for any sort of debate other than any that you might want to have. It's more to just point out that you have this information in your packet with the idea that as they continue with this study, you all can have a head start on thinking about the ways you might want to address their recommendations. So you'll see that they give you several potential tools, and I just want you to have plenty of time to reflect on those, to think about the avenue you want this council to take in addressing the need to protect Scenic Highway 11. So it's more there for your information, and I wanted to point that out to you.
Any questions for Mr. Roper regarding this study?
I have a question. Will there be any further meetings with the community? Or is there a circle back or anything like that associated with this?
Yes, they will be. The meetings are ongoing and will continue probably through March.
I didn't have a chance to go to one of the meetings, and the feedback that I got from multiple attendees, but it was more of a less of an open an open discussion, and more sort of a opportunity to be on a political stump. And I was curious, like, how are these things managed? Who administrates the meetings? How are those things working? Because I didn't get a chance to attend. I'm kind of curious why that would have happened.
Yes, sir. And I regret that people perceived it that way. There were, I guess, 3 different avenues, really 4 now that I think about it, under which we solicited public input. One was an online survey, so folks could take a survey online, a visual preference survey. They could say, I want Highway 11 to look more like this or that. It was a series of binary choices. It was anonymous. It was a visual preference survey. Some of that information is in the interim report you have in front of you. The other way was a series of public meetings that were held. I attended one of those, and I think Mr. Seda attended that one with me, where it was more an open forum. So I think everyone in the room got to talk at least once, because we were a little surprised by the turnout. Other than that, it's been one-on-one meetings with stakeholders, like significant property owners on Highway 11. And then we intend to follow up with potential recommendations and have another public meeting. So to the extent that anyone perceived that being a kind of a political stump speech opportunity, it was not our intention, and I regret that happened.
Okay, so it's managed by the Appalachian guys?
Yes,
They're up and kind of administrating the meetings?
Yes, sir. We've relied on them, considering that this is in their area of expertise and not so much ours. It's something we haven't really ventured into before.
Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion? Here none, we'll move to item number 12 on tonight's agenda. It's consideration of resolution 2022-04 to award the design and installation of the wayfinding signage for Pickens County. Do I have a motion and a second to consider this resolution?
Motion.
I have a motion by Councilman Feenstra. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by the Vice Chairman. Discussion.
Explanation?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, if it suits the council, I'll tell you that this is a step we did not anticipate. You all have already approved the idea of this signage program. You've actually already funded it as well through some ATAX dollars. What we found out as we got ready to move towards contract execution to have the contractor actually go out and start installing signs is DOT required us to have a resolution from you all saying clearly that we are the county and we intend to put these signs up and maintain them. So it's more a bureaucratic thing for the SCDOT to have to show legitimacy of our sign program.
What is the definition of a wayfinding sign?
I don't know that I'm prepared to give you a definition of that other than kind of the layman's terms. It's not going to point you just to county facilities. It's going to be, you're traveling down the highway and you're here from another part of the state and you want to find out where the Hagen Mill is, or you want to find out where the recycling center is, or where a public park is. So it's going to point you to all of these sorts of different facilities so that if you're traveling and you don't have a good sense of the lay of the land.
So a road name sign, by definition, could be construed as a wayfinding sign. It tells me the way, if I'm following directions that includes road names.
Right, I guess so, and I don't want to, it might be a term of art, Mr. Chairman, that you and I don't understand in the tourism community. So other than that limitation, I think you're correct.
So my concern with that is Pickens County accepts ownership of and responsibility for future maintenance, repair, and replacement of wayfinding signage, relieving South Carolina DOT of that responsibility for any and all wayfinding signage installed in SCDOT rights of way.
Yeah, it's pursuant to the plan and it references the plan, and I really appreciate where you're going with this because we know in the past that SCDOT has been anxious to stick us, not the local guys, the state guys, but it's referencing the wayfinding signage plan, and I appreciate, Mr. Chairman, you having a sharp eye for those details.
Well, I understand that there's a plan and it references the plan. The verbiage in this resolution says that we're going to take over all wayfinding signage. And if the DOT says that a road sign with a name is a wayfinding sign, there's a lot of those in SCDOT right-of-ways throughout this county.
It's a fair point, Mr. Chairman. If y'all would like to fine-tune that language, I would be very welcoming of it.
I have the same point. We need to specify wayfinding for Pickens County versus anything that SCDOT. We put all the signs up for Pickens County, right? What signs does SCDOT have in there? Speed signs and what kind of stuff would they have in there?
They have other signs too that they put up, scenic highway signs.
So can we just say anything that's not put up by the SCDOT?
What we could probably do is reference specifically the plan that we're submitting, these signs, because it's specific as to location. Our plan is specific, like we're putting it on that street corner and the arrow's pointing that way. That larger plan is not in front of you, but that's what I would recommend is that you add, if it suits the council, to put language in there that references the contemporaneously filed plan, and that's all it applies to.
What if we alter the plan and add a location?
I'm sorry, I didn't.
Let's say we have a plan. You're saying very specific locations. What if we decide, hey, you know what, we forgot to put one here?
The fact that this resolution exists will allow us to do that administratively.
So you can reword that.
Go ahead, Vice Chairman.
I was going to say, so the 1, 2, 3rd from the bottom paragraph, relieving SCDOT the responsibility of any and all wayfinding signage installed by Pickens County according to the plan in SCODT's right away. I mean, you could just insert the language right there.
That does make it more specific, yes.
If there is a motion for an amendment, I'll second it.
A motion to amend it to say wayfinding signage installed by Pickens County according to the specific plan, and whatever, I don't know what the terminology is for the plan.
Wayfinding signage plan.
Wayfinding signage plan, and then in SCODT's right away.
I'll second that motion for amendment. Any discussion on that motion to amend? All those in favor of the amendment, signify by raising your hand. Any other questions? Mr. Roper, just for clarification purposes, because we do have a procurement ordinance, and we do have a way of procuring and awarding contracts and bids. HDR was only referenced because they completed the plan. This is not awarding them a contract or anything like that, for clarification purposes.
They did the signage design because they're one of our on-call that went through the procurement process to be on call. So that's actually an edit that happened. There was some bad information in the title that y'all received with the written package that came through some confusion on our part. We're not awarding the bid tonight. That's not
I want to make that clear. I didn't read it as we were,
right.
But since they were mentioned about 4 times, I want to make it clear. Any other discussion or question? All those in favor as amended, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you, gentlemen. Item number 13 tonight, first reading in title only of an ordinance applying redistricting criteria for Pickens County Council districts based upon the 2020 U.S. Census. This came from committee, so it doesn't require a second. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Chairman.
Vice Chairman Costner.
So I just want to make sure, this is just the first reading and title only of the plan. It's coming out of the committee saying that we're voting specifically on option 2 draft map. I'm not comfortable necessarily with option 2, but I am comfortable moving forward with the language in the first reading title only of an ordinance applying for redistricting criteria for Pickens County Council districts based on the 2020 U.S. Census. I just wanted to make sure we weren't specifically voting on one plan, right, or starting the process for one plan and one plan only.
The actual technical motion that came out of the committee was recommend first reading and title only of ordinance to move forward with the option 2 draft map on council redistricting. That is the motion that came out of committee.
Mr. Chairman, so to me, the purpose of having 3 readings is so that we can fine tune and discuss, and I would hope that we would do first reading and first opportunity to get to talk more about it as a collectively as a group, and not just go just specific to one map.
If you would like to make a motion to amend to remove option 2 language, I'll entertain that motion, but the motion
I'll make a motion to remove option 2 and do specifically the first reading and title only of ordinance applying redistricting criteria for Pickens County Council districts based on the 2020 U.S. Census.
I'll second that.
I have a second by Councilman Famester. Discussion on the amendment.
I want to speak on that. I actually, there were 2 options that were provided by the staff. Option 2 only makes 4 changes to the current map. When there's less changes, I think it's less confusing to voters, so the less changes, the better. The option 2 doesn't split any precincts, so when you go to vote at your precinct, precinct XYZ, everybody will have the same ballot. You won't have 2 different ballots in some cases. It was created by staff. When politicians start to move district lines, it becomes politicized. That didn't happen here with option 2 or option 1. And you know, after the State House fiasco, I think you'll find this option very refreshing because it is very apolitical at this point, and I'd like to try to keep it that way. Final thing is minimum changes avoid legal scrutiny as well. The Voting Rights Act has expired, but any citizen group or any citizen or Democrat in the U.S. Department of Justice can legally challenge any line changes based on discrimination or political gerrymandering. And that's not going to happen here because there's been so little changed. If we start to actually make changes coming from elected officials, it runs the risk of being politicized. I want to avoid that. The only complaint I have with option 2 is I think it does too much changes, but it was a compromise, and I'm willing to support it.
Vice Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, respectfully, Mr. Sadie, with everything that you have said, I completely agree. However, I don't want to have any say-so in the moving of the lines. And at our Committee of the Whole meeting, you specifically made reference to people who didn't know you in one of the options as to a reason to move the line to option 2. And I didn't even really want to talk about it here, but I will. I just don't think that it is our place to start gerrymandering the lines. I want to make sure that I don't get to choose specifically what my district is, and that it follows the state law specifically, and that's my position.
Mr. Sadie, I'm sorry, Mr. Bowers.
Councilman Wilson.
I'll defer. He had his hand.
Councilman Hurst.
I think we're all in agreement. I think all that Councilman Costner is looking at is let's keep our options open for a little bit as we're going through this process. There may be a couple of adjustments. None of this was presented to us. Council had no influence on any of it.
No.
So whether it's here or there, I think is irrelevant to that point. But I think all you're saying is that we may end up going with this option in the end.
We may.
Right now, we only have 2 options. I think what I'm hearing is it may change a bit. There could be a third option that adjusts something as y'all doing your fine tuning. I think what particularly attracted me about option 2 is it did not break up any precincts. And having split precincts is a very difficult thing for staff to deal with, for voters to deal with, and that sort of stuff. But I'm fine with not being specific. We've got 2 more readings, okay? So I don't think it's a big argument to have tonight about this one or that one. I think we can move forward. I think we have a general idea. We saw the maps for the first time the other day. So we're just kind of getting a feel for it, and I'm okay with either side on this thing. I think in my mind I'm seeing it go a direction just because of the convenience for the voters and that. But that may change a little bit as you get more information, or there may be something changed, and I'm okay with that. Just having a general move forward. But I think we're all on the same page. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yes, sir.
It's
yes,
not so much you want to go for
I mean,
option
I,
one
I,
or
what I
option
want to,
two.
what I'm saying is I didn't want to vote on a specific one when we still have
got
2 more
readings and we have discussions.
and we
about
should
it.
be able to discuss all the possibilities.
And we could probably do that without, even if we had it named as number 2.
Yes.
We could. But if it makes you feel more comfortable not to, I'm okay with that, because we just saw it for literally the first time the other day. So,
Councilman Wilson.
I think that from a political perspective, we've had some decisions we've made, multiple iterations and discussions all the way throughout the process. When we do the title only, it's title only. We've got some basic information. We come around to number 2, we hear some things, we talk about it with folks, and then all the way up until the 3rd time we read it, I mean, it's a prerogative of the political entity that we are to get feedback from folks along the way, to learn as we go, and to make changes. And for me, locking it in, like you just pointed out, opens the door for more of the politicalizing we've seen in some past decision that kind of continues to be ongoing, where there was folks encouraged to believe that there was sort of a last-minute change or something like that, that ultimately was just a byproduct of the overall political discussion. So I think it's prudent to not particularly mention one option at this point. The other thing that I would say is that it should change. There's a lot of folks involved. And some of the things that I saw from just looking at the data, and after being involved with 40-plus elections over the years, had the opportunity to look at lots and lots of voter data and do predictive analysis, and et cetera, et cetera. When I looked at it in anticipation with the heat maps, and when I looked at other information there, I think that there's clearly some opportunity to anticipate where there's going to be growth in the community overall, and that there's going to be an opportunity there to look at it just more proactively than to just take that first look, which to me was a great way to divide it up just by heads, but not necessarily by growth. So I think that there certainly needs to be an ongoing discussion about it because it's important. And then in reference to what you said about Mr. Seda, I don't know that he necessarily meant that nefariously, but what I would think is that any of us making these decisions based on us being in these seats and making reference to they don't know me, or that's not my people, or that's not my, my area, or that's going to hurt me. I think that's what opens up the discussion for folks to think that we're just gerrymandering, that we're protecting our own seat instead of doing what's right for the folks. So I respect what you were talking about there. I don't necessarily think that that particular comment was meant to be nefarious and self-protective.
Mr. Chairman.
And then the last thing is, and I would think that this is kind of important, the idea of not splitting the precincts is just absolutely wonderful. Keeping them as a cluster, because when you're standing outside of a precinct right beside somebody from a totally different election and people don't know who you are, don't have any clue, that they're going to actually be voting for you because they're on one side of the street and last time it was some other guy. That's very, very difficult. So I think I would echo what Mr. Whitehurst just said. If there's going to be changes, it should be sort of sweeping. It should be an entire precinct for sure. So, that I'm down for that, but I would absolutely not want to lock us in on the first page here, because if one of us doesn't get the neighborhood that we wanted, I'd hate to see somebody on Facebook trying to convince these folks that they've been hoodooed because it only happened to the last meeting, and we've seen enough of that, I think, from a political perspective. And I think that type of gamesmanship is outside of the range of what we want to have with the redistricting, since it's so serious.
Mr. Chairman. My apologies. I didn't mean to imply that it was nefarious at all. I merely want to protect the integrity of this council so that the perception is not that that's what we are doing.
Understood.
I have a comment. Well, there was 2 options created by the staff, and that was it. So I preferred option 2 because it had less changes. But how will you change option 1 and option 2? Will there be an amendment process at second reading?
Absolutely. So if this amendment that's made that removes the language of option 2, as we move forward with the second reading and the third reading finally, that's when the more specific language would come into play.
So let's say
there could be
if this was
10 more options.
Yeah, but I mean, if this is the second reading, would I just make an amendment to change an option? I mean, that's going to be very cumbersome. It almost needs to go back to committee so that we can all discuss what the concerns are.
So actually, first reading in title only of an ordinance applying redistricting criteria for Pickens County Council redistricts based upon the 2020 U.S. Census. The second reading would actually say something along the lines of second reading of ordinance applying redistricting criteria for Pickens County Council districts based upon the 2020 U.S. Census, and would lay out what that criteria is. So it's actually embodied in the ordinance itself. Currently, there's not a living, breathing document that has those explanations. That's the reason why it's in title only, and that's why I think what I hear these gentlemen advocating, removing that option 2 language, because it is in title only. It's not a document per se yet.
But in the end, we have to vote on a map. So where does that
would
how does it
appear
just
in
create?
that would appear as part of your second reading, or more language would be in your second reading, or your third
But where's
reading.
that language going to come from? Is somebody going to make a motion at the meeting?
At
Or
our
is somebody going to
committee
call
meetings
Ken
that
and
we
say,
move
create
forward?
option 3? Or
Well, I mean, we will discuss it at our next committee meeting because we have until, what, April?
Okay, you're saying it's going to go back to committee?
That was part of the motion coming out of committee. Is that it's staying committee.
Oh, it's, okay, I missed that, okay, gotcha.
Yeah. It's very much living, breathing, working at
Gotcha.
the moment.
Okay.
Any discussion over this amendment? Mr. Councilman Fincher.
I like the number 2 option, but the number 2 option almost would be in District 2, which is not exactly just since my political career. So what I'm looking for to be like option 2, but hopefully I can get the district changed a little bit so that I'm closer to the center of the district.
Those are all things that we'll obviously continue to discuss in committee, which is why it's staying in committee. So the motion on the table is to amend the verbiage to remove the option 2 language. I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion over the amendment?
I think that the point that Mr. Feimster just brought up is cogent. If you look at the growth pattern in his particular district, it's going to spread out easterly across the base there just based on the significant amount of development we already know is on the table if we don't pinwheel it just a hair, right? There's an opportunity there to give him that space to grow. There's a similar opportunity to do that in other areas. I don't want to waive my opportunity to have discussions about this all the way up to the very end.
Any other discussions on the amendment? Hearing none, all those in favor of the amendment, please signify by raising your hand. All right, the motion on the table now is first reading in title only of ordinance applying redistricting criteria for Pickens County Council districts based upon the 2020 U.S. Census. Any other discussion on that amendment, on that motion?
My only concern is that between now and the committee meeting, there may be private discussions between individual council members making recommendations to the administration, and we shouldn't do that. We should sit down at this meeting and sit down and look at the map and make decisions from there on. And so I don't want to see a third option, is what I'm saying, because that would be done
Councilman,
privately.
I'm going to be very upfront and blunt. There may be 10 more options. As things come down, we may come to committee meetings. I may bring an option of my own.
And that, which is a great idea. What I think, the point I'm trying to get at is I don't think we should individually work with the administration for them to create more options. Honestly, the administration probably shouldn't create any options. This is one of the things that they really have no factor on at all. It's really just this political body that has that it affects. But I'm all for showing up at the next meeting, looking at the map, whatever concerns you have. My position is always going to be minimum changes. I mean, I would go back to the map that we have now and just make the minimum changes.
I can say something on that.
Councilman Wilson.
When we first joined this organization, you and I did about 6 months worth of advocacy for us to be able to work with the staff without having to pass it through, or without begging for forgiveness, and then without having to be castigated in case we mention something or talk with the staff in a way that draws attention to the administrator, something he's got a different initiative or whatnot. You and I did a lot of that, and what you're saying is the opposite now. And I would think that all of us have a duty to these folks to have a discussion about redistricting that's based on long-term growth, that's based on lots of things that just didn't come out of the discussion we had when they just flashed up two maps that may or may not have been to your preference. But we didn't have a discussion on growth. We didn't have a discussion on projected development. We didn't have a discussion on the demographics of those districts. From an economics perspective, we didn't have a discussion based on balancing it out for where we would project the census to grow in the future based on what the trends have been over time. We didn't have any of that. So to me, to come in and say, well, let's either let the staff do it and so hands off in support of the one, or for us to go back on what you and I advocated for and say we're not going to talk to the staff, because they're the ones that have all the information. They have all the data. They have the information we talked about in the past, right? You guys have posted or whatever and given us access to. This is too important, and there are too many people to talk to, and we're going to find out things that are where there's going to be development or whatever, all the way up to the last part of the discussion. So I don't understand the flip-flop here for let's tie our hands, but then in the past you didn't want to tie your hands.
There's actually no flip-flop. I just think that if we're going to ask for options from the district, if we're allowed to call them, I'll call them tomorrow with an option, if that's okay. But I have a lot of time. I can generate a lot of options. I don't think we should do that. I think we should sit down at the next meeting and talk and try to see if we can find a common ground. Whatever his concerns are, maybe we could just work it out. I just don't think we should all be running to them privately with our own options and they start generating them. That's all I'm saying. Asking the staff a question versus doing work for me so I can present it to the next committee are two different things.
I don't disagree with what you're saying. I don't disagree with either one of you are saying, because if I bring a problem to Mr. Roper or a concern to Mr. Roper, I do expect somewhat of a look into answer or whatever. By the same token, he knows the line between, all right, I'm now doing the chairman's personal projects, which is not allowed or shouldn't be allowed, because I don't have the authority to say, Mr. Roper, do this without a vote of this council. But if I'm asking for, hey, I just need some groundwork or whatever, that's part of it. We all do it I can't speak. Okay. I know most of us call with some, in fact, you have a log of issues that Jessica keeps and Megan keeps. So, it'd be no different than that. As long as it's not, Mr. Roper, this is my plan, this is what I want you to pitch. That's not allowed.
Okay, so I can call them tomorrow and say, I got an idea for an option, and that's okay.
You can say that, but he can't go saying, this is what we're going to do.
No, that's fine. No, of course. Okay. That's a good idea. That's fair. That's fair.
And we can't direct the staff. I mean, we can only act through, through us as a group, and then in your case, working directly with the staff on our behalf, right? So so far, they've given us data. I've not talked to anybody in GIS probably in a couple of years, except for, hey, how you doing?
Right. Mr. Roper.
I would say I appreciate the conversation you all are having. One good way to look at it, I think it will help harmonize the two, not even really different positions, two concerns, is that my staff is here as a resource for you all as you go through the process. But that's what's only going to be a resource. So if y'all need technical expertise, we can help with a concept, then we'll do that. But we're not going to start advocating for something different based on, which one we're mad at or something like that. We're not going to do that. We're here as a resource.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All those in favor as amended, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you, gentlemen. Item 14 on tonight's agenda is second reading of an ordinance to combine construction of Board of Appeals and zoning Board of Appeals. I had some conversation with Mr. Hendricks about this. I guess I need a motion and a second so that we can discuss. It is on the agenda. I'm going to ask for an update, or you just share, if you don't mind.
Yes, Chairman, I'll do a quick update for you. What you have asked for me to review is two different boards, a construction Board of Appeals and what we call the Board of Appeals, which is properly known as the Board of Zoning Appeals, even though we don't have zoning. I went back and started looking at combining those two boards, and I appreciate the idea of combining the two boards. I understand and commend council for doing that. I went through with the clerk today with ordinances going back to 1988. I looked at ordinances in 1988, 2001, 2003, 2004, 2015, some more back in 1991 that were, because I was trying to figure out how these boards were originally compiled. They were done by our ordinances in conjunction with different statutes, with Title 6, Chapter 9, Title 6, Chapter 29, and Title 31. All of those lines and of those statutes and ordinances together combine to form how we have those two boards. If we combine those two boards, you will necessarily have to modify our developmental standard ordinance and go back and modify several of these ordinances. And I think what you should do is one of two things: either send this to committee for a further briefing, which I'm telling you is a big job, or vote on it tonight and say it's more effort than it's worth.
So I ask for a motion second on the second reading of ordinance to combine Construction Board of Appeals and Zoning Board of Appeals.
Motion.
I have a motion.
Second.
I have a second. Discussion. Councilman Whitehurst.
I think it's okay to do a second reading, send it to committee and review it. I would like to have this council look in to see if it's worth the time or not, because one of the struggles we have had is getting enough people on these boards and having a quorum. And then what happens is the public gets left. They can't get their issue resolved because we don't have a quorum on the board. And some of this has sometimes been months. So I think the overall idea will help the citizenry move things quicker through our bureaucratic system, which, as we have seen, can sometimes be very, very slow. So I would be in favor of, let's look into the nitty-gritty and see, okay, exactly what do we have to do? Because I think it's best for the citizenship. If it's a pain for us, I don't mind that pain if we can get through it and then have a long-term effect that makes things move smoother for them. That's just my thought.
Any other discussion?
I think that folks should understand that the reason why this was brought about is what Mr. Whitehurst just referred to. I mean, I have a predominantly rural district, and the folks that are on the boards from my area are asked to be on every board, and they're on, in every church organization. And I mean, a lot of these folks are doing 5 and 6 boards, or they just eventually get burned out on it. And since it's predominantly rural, we don't have a lot of the don't have a lot of the activities that you would typically see in an urban area where you could identify future leaders and use these boards as opportunities for them to grow. And, my opinion is that, and feel free to disagree with me, that before you take a role like this, you should be, working on one of these kind of boards so you can kind of see. When I was on the planning commission, it opened my eyes to how slow government is and how difficult it was. It was a great experience before being elected. It's difficult to identify those kind of folks in a rural community. So the idea here was to consolidate some of these boards so that we wouldn't have to ask quite so many people to do so many things. And then, I think that's just a rule of sociology. 3 to 5% of the people are going to volunteer and do the majority of the activities in the community. People get tired of being asked to do these kind of things, and these folks are meeting, but their job is not that broad because of the limitations. So you guys y'all looked at so we can consolidate a number of other seats, other boards as well, right? Because of lack of attention and lack of good works to do. These just happen to be the two that we can kind of actually maybe do something with, very difficultly.
It's a possibility to do it, but it will require balancing numerous statutes and ordinances. But I'll be glad to report back in detail to the full council.
Any other discussion? I'll make a motion that we amend and we add the verbiage commit following second reading.
Second.
Second by Councilman Wilson on that. Discussion on the amendment. Hearing none, all those in favor of amendment, please signify by raising your hand. Item 15 on tonight's agenda. Second reading of an ordinance declaring a temporary development and construction pause moratorium for 6 months and the issuance of development and construction permits for certain residential and non-residential structures and development along the South Carolina Highway 11 scenic byway while plans are conducted and applicable standards are developed and updated relative to the South Carolina Highway 11 scenic byway in Pickens County, South Carolina. I ask for a motion and a second to constitute second reading of this ordinance.
So moved.
Motion by Councilman Famster.
Second.
Second by Councilman Wilson. Discussion.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Seda.
other than preferring 120 days, I think the terms of the moratorium are actually very reasonable to me. I just disagree with a lot of the whereases, which is someone has written into the ordinance. None of that's really necessary. And there's 3 things that I don't like in particular and I want to share with you. First one is, it says, whereas the county council finds there are considerable interest in both protection and appropriate development along Highway 11. That's true. I'm definitely hearing interest on that, but I'm also hearing input about protecting landowner property rights. So I would like to add that there. That was something I would add if I wrote it. Second thing is, it says Pickens County finds the preservation and protection of this corridor with Pickens County is difficult and without proper planning and adoption of appropriate developmental standards. The Pickens County government may believe that, but my focus is on the residents who live along Highway 11 and what they want. They're not really mentioned in any of this, and they should be mentioned in this. So I would probably strike out that whole paragraph and the wants of Pickens County government. I think they're really not relevant. And the third thing is the process. It says this process will help define and recommend proper standards for protection, preservation, development along this important corridor. Pickens County Council finds that these processes are important and desires a reasonable time for these planning processes to conclude. That's great. What I don't like is the conclusion that follows. In order to develop needed standards for the corridor for protection and betterment of public health, safety, and welfare of the citizens of Pickens County. ACOG is still gathering public input on this. They're going to have some more meetings. They haven't created their final report. The Planning Commission hasn't done that either. And during this period, we're going to start getting a lot of feedback as it starts to get more press. So I think it's too early to have any conclusions about what we'll do or what we won't do on Highway 11. So I would strike that wording at the end. So I'd like to propose an amendment to change those 3 things.
I have a motion to amend with those 3 things by Councilman Seda. Do I have a second for that amendment?
I'll second it.
Second by
Here
Councilman
you go. You can just look at what I wrote. It just, that, yes, it is. It basically just adds some language at the beginning in that first one, and it strikes out some other language. It doesn't change the terms of the moratorium at all, which are written in the back half of that ordinance.
Pass that one down.
Yeah.
Discussion on the amendment. Councilman Wyler.
I think you're just making some, I agree, making sure that people understand we are trying to help the landowners. People a lot of times like to say we don't care about property rights, but we do, and I think we need to make that a point in this. The other things I don't have any problem with. I don't think it changes. It just kind of maybe clarifies a couple of things that we are working on it.
It's in process rather than
That it's in
conclusion.
process, and I don't think it's a huge deal. I just think it maybe says that, hey, we haven't made any final decision. Kind of like what we did with our county lines for our precincts and stuff. We're still working on it. So I think all you're doing is emphasizing that, and I'm okay with all that.
Other discussion? So I'm going to say, and you just have to forgive me because I think I am missing something here. And I'm going to be very honest, I really feel like I'm missing something here. I don't disagree with the protection of landowner property rights. Put that in there, that's great. Whereas Pickens County finds the preservation and protection of this corridor within Pickens County is difficult without proper planning and adoption of appropriate development standards. Is that not the purpose of what we're doing?
I thought the purpose was down below, actually, in the fifth one.
Court is currently working on its 10-year rewrite of its comprehensive plan and will start undertaking both South Carolina Highway 11 Scenic Corridor Study and review of corridor appropriate development standards.
It's kind of redundancy, I guess.
Doesn't that not say the same thing as what it says up there?
Yeah.
Okay. So redundancy. I'll buy
Yeah,
that.
that's what it was.
And I don't understand the striking at the end, but I don't think it makes a hill of beans
It
difference.
says to develop needed standards. That just implies that we're going to develop needed standards for the corridor. We may not. Right now, there's no standards on it. I tend to suspect we will, but I'd like to get a report. I'd like the Planning Commission to actually give a recommendation. I'd like to get ACOG's recommendation, and I would like to get more feedback. I got some more today. So I'm still open before I actually say that we're going to do anything.
So you're pretty much, and I want to be clear, and I think this is where my confusion, you just cleared it up, I think. The intent and purpose, as you understand the moratorium, and you were the one that asked for this, so I respect where you're coming from, that's why I'm trying to understand it, is give us time to do the study. Don't give us time, we're not talking about coming up with a plan, we're not talking about new standards. Let us do the study to determine whether or not we even need standards up there.
Yeah, that's part of it. You know, review the situation when we have, gather public input, and even develop recommendations, which I think is in here. It says, well, help define and recommend proper standards. That's in there. So I don't mind people recommending standards. I'm just saying that when it starts to say our desire is this or we're going to do that, I don't have any conclusion yet.
Okay.
Okay, that's where I'm going.
Any other discussion on the amendment?
I would like to point out that this is the argument that we just had, like Mr. Whitehurst just pointed out. The opposite being here from what we heard earlier. And I think it's kind of, it bears repetition here because folks in the community have expressed different opinions about us making changes all the way up until the very end. So we go through a learning process. That's why there's multiple votes. And by the end of the time that we get there may be information that we didn't have on the first vote or the second vote. And so what you're basically looking at here is the process of government. A lot of times we've seen issues where it was, hey, they got us in the end. They didn't tell us. They weren't transparent. But this is the process of government, and I appreciate that Mr. Zeta is making this argument.
Any other discussion on the amendment? Yeah, all those in favor of the amendment signify by raising your hand. All right. Any other discussion on the?
Mr. Chairman, yeah, just a point of clarification. Why does it say certain residential I mean, I thought we were trying to just talk about commercial, but I guess that could mean, I just want to make sure I understand. That could mean like if somebody wanted to go in and develop a bunch of houses?
Right.
Is that what that means? But I consider
Well,
that's
what
not
it means.
commercial?
What it means is you can still do, if you've got a piece of property and you want to put 2 houses on it that meets all the other qualifications, you can still do that.
Right, yeah, because I just want to make sure we protect the people that are there.
It's aimed at big strip.
I can build a farm or a barn back there if I need to, but.
That's right.
But this is, okay, I got it. I just wanted to make sure that I understood that. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Sadie.
Yeah, basically what the short-term moratorium does is it's a moratorium on new manufacturing, new commercial, new signage, and new residential subdivisions. It does not affect single residential lots or lots not to be considered larger subdivisions. Somehow the wording got a little changed when they wrote this, but it's up to 10 houses and it is allowed under this reading, which is fine for me. It's not what the motion was initially. But basically what it is it's focusing the moratorium on manufacturing, commercial, signage, and big subdivisions. Individual residents, you have a 1 lot, you can build your house on it. There's no restriction on it for the next 180 days, and it maybe not will ever be. That's what it's doing. And what that's going to do, its purpose is to get feedback, and its purpose is to allow ACOG and the Planning Commission to finish up their reports and make their recommendations.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. And that carries. Item number 15 on tonight's agenda, I think.
16.
Nope, 16. I got off, I apologize. Public hearing and third reading of ordinance to the Code of the County of Pickens to certify the vacant textile building located at 225 Ruhamer Road, Liberty, South Carolina, as a textile mill site under the South Carolina Textiles Community Revitalization Act. Oop. I open us up to public hearing for this matter. Is there anyone that would like to comment? Hearing none, I close public comment. Ask for a motion and second to constitute third reading of this ordinance.
Motion.
Have a motion by Vice Chairman. Second by Councilman Feimster. Is there any discussion?
Is this is not that vacant lot one we told you
No.
before? Okay.
The building over in Liberty.
Yes. I'm trying to picture where I know Ruhamer Road.
It's,
Oh, got it.
Any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you, gentlemen. Item 17 on tonight's agenda, public hearing and third reading of an ordinance to develop a jointly owned and operated industrial business park in conjunction with Oconee County. Such industrial business park to be geographically located in Oconee County and established pursuant to Section 4-1-170 of the Code of Laws of South Carolina, 1976, as amended, to provide for a written agreement with Oconee County to provide for the expenses of the park, the percentage of revenue application, and the distribution of fees in lieu of ad valorem taxation, and other matters related thereto. Project Ruby Slipper. A gavel send to public hearing. Is there anyone that would like to comment? Hearing none, I close public comment. Ask for a motion and a second to constitute third reading of this ordinance.
A motion.
Motion by Councilman Wilson. Do I have a second? Second by Councilman Feimster. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you, gentlemen. Item number 18 on tonight's agenda is the consent agenda. I have the aerial mill rehab project to be placed on the committee log. I ask for a motion and second to approve the consent agenda. Motion by Councilman Whitehurst. Do I have a second? Second by Councilman Feimster. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you, gentlemen. Item 19 on tonight's agenda is executive session. I ask that we go to executive session for boards and commissions, applications, personnel, the 2021 Pinnacle Performer of the Year, a legal update regarding upstate grading, and potential contractual matter regarding Project Darnold. Do I have a motion and a second that we go to executive session for these items after a brief recess?
A motion to amend this to just for applications and briefing on current status of the boards and commission appointments.
So you would like to amend under boards and commission applications and status?
Yeah, on status of the current allotment of folks that we've all voted for.
You're still good for that one. You're still good because boards and commissions, they can give some input on it.
All right.
So I have a motion to amend.
I withdraw the motion.
Okay. So as for, did I get my motion to go to executive?
I move that we go to executive session.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Vice Chairman. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you, gentlemen.